TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast and leave us stars and hearts and whatever they have now.
Well, it's stars. It's on iTunes. They have
Thanks.
5 stars, please. How are you?
I'm all right. It's warm today. I'm all right.
It is kind of warm. Also, we're going to fly through
We
this
are
episode,
totally
right?
flying. We have so much stuff to get to.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? Okay, we're just going to dunk on this guy.
Yeah.
All right.
Who?
Last week.
I'm in.
Last week,
Yeah.
we talked about this pastor, John Gray. He used to work with Joel Osteen. Now he's on his own, but he has a TV show with Oprah Winfrey. He's one of those televangelists / megachurch preachers who also has a side hustle where he is Kardashianing himself on TV as a preacher / guy
when you
who's
say
rich.
Kardashian, like he has a reality show? Is that
Yes,
what you're... Okay.
that's exactly what I'm getting at.
Wow.
And I don't know what else he does. But
God, that would be a fucking boring reality show.
I
of,
haven't seen it, but that is exactly like,
hello.
what are you going to show me that's interesting?
I'm a pastor. I go to bed at 9 p.m.
Yeah, by definition, if you do anything interesting, you're in trouble. But okay, so last week we discussed this guy because he had done this publicity stunt at his church where he put out all the collection buckets on his stage.
I remember this guy
and
now.
he
We
said-
had an argument about
We
this
did have an
boy.
argument. He said, if you're poor, come on down in front of the cameras and take whatever you need because we're a generous people and I'm a generous guy. Take what you need. We're getting you on camera, by the way, so we're totally exploiting you.
I feel like you're editorializing this a little bit.
No, that's the fact. So, yeah, that's what he said. We had an argument because I didn't think what he was doing was totally generous. I thought it was kind of a publicity stunt. Correct me if I'm wrong. You thought it was more generous and I was just being cynical.
Well, I think you're being cynical. And I think me thinking, it was definitely a publicity stunt, but that doesn't
Negate how good of a thing it was.
we all do shit for publicity. Not we, you and I, we being I don't know, corporations.
Sure, everyone does something like it, so
Right.
it wasn't the worst. Okay, here's the follow-up to this story that I'm really curious what you think about this.
Okay.
After that whole incident kind of played out in the media, another John Gray incident also appeared in the media. This is after we had our discussion. His wife and he celebrated their 8th anniversary, and guess what he got her for a gift?
Oh, God, I don't want to know. Tell me.
A hint, he's a megachurch pastor.
That doesn't help me, even the littlest bit.
If you guessed $200,000 Lamborghini, you would be right.
Oh, I thought it was going to be something more distinctly sexual in nature.
No.
But I was worried about guessing about it.
$200,000 car.
Jeez Louise.
Which, and my
It's almost
favorite.
as much as my house.
Yeah, here's what he said. 8 years, this is what he said. 8 years, new beginnings, new hope, new life, and for her, a new whip. I don't get it.
Oh, a whip is a thing people call cars. I just learned it recently.
That's
and
what
hear
cool
it all the
people
time.
say.
Yeah.
I put a faith
Old
deposit down in February, and God helped me to make my wife's dream come true. Why not? She made mine come true. Hashtag God is my witness. Hashtag book contract. Hashtag haters be blessed.
Okay,
and they're
can I
not going to
just-
apologize for their blessings.
Can I just start by saying, is it an expression that 8 years means a clean slate? Is that he said it what happens after 8 years? Fresh starts. No, fuck this guy. I am solidly...
The thing I don't get is he made this big show of when he gave away money, one of the things I didn't like about it is that he's taking the congregation's money
I know.
and giving it away to other members of the
understood all of
congregation.
those things.
He's the guy taking most of the money. And by the
Yeah,
way, he
that's not a
reiterated
cute look.
when people got mad at him for this huge
He said,
extravagant thing.
hashtag haters be blessed.
He responded, I didn't use my church salary to pay for it. I used my other money that he makes from his TV show and his books, hashtag book contract, That's what he was using, as if these are separate accounts and they have nothing to do with each other. But, like, the only reason he has those other things is because he does flashy publicity stunts where he pretends to be generous.
Right. Well, okay. Yes, you are not incorrect. Also, my sort of distaste about this whole thing isn't that, like, he shouldn't be allowed to buy an ostentatious gift for his wife. Like, it's his right. Like, he can
it's his
do
money.
it.
It's his wife.
It's
Whatever. Like, I'm sorry, that came out wrong. It's his money.
What'd you say?
It's his relationship, is what I was getting at. Like, I don't care what you do with your wife.
I don't, like, it's like, is that the most tacky thing I've ever heard? Obviously. Like, I feel like buying somebody a sports car, I don't know, it just feels so 1980s to me. Like, maybe it's just like my sort of anti-consumerism sort of bent that I'm taking as I get older, but like, dude, gross. But, like, so yeah, he's allowed to. I'm not saying he's not allowed to or he should be like looked into, but just, it's really tacky and really ostentatious. And when you're asking people to donate money and you're throwing money down the drain like that, like, what are you do you have no concept of what you look like? Like, the visual, I think that's what it is. The visuals are so bad.
You would think a televangelist of all people would try to play
down
down.
his image.
But no, there are cameras everywhere. He made a big show of presenting this to her, too.
Oh, God. In front of his congregation or on the show? On the TV show?
I don't know. The videos were a little weird. They were not professionally made. They were like, they were
like
phone. They were
iPhone?
someone pulled out a phone, took videos. Mm-hmm. One of them came down because I guess he didn't want it out there. But another one was out there that he had no problem with. Like, these videos are out there. There was a crowd watching him present this to his wife. But again, the thing that bothers me is he's making this huge deal about how he's so generous. Mm-hmm. He didn't even give away his own money. He gave away his congregation's money to other members of the congregation, but only after exploiting them.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to use all of this money to buy this whatever for my wife. It's not like he said, I'm going to give you this car, and by the way, I made a huge donation to charity in your name.
And I got you a Camry. Like,
again, I don't even want. You're right. I don't want to, and I shouldn't be shaming him for what he chooses to do with his money. Mm-hmm. But a week after he made a big showing about how giving he is, it's
none
like,
of it's
dude,
great.
That's not the same.
None of it's great.
Oh, it's just skeezy. It seems.
Ugh.
On the flip side of that, this again, I'll get the fun one out of the way before we get on to heavier topics.
Yeah, sure. I'd hate to have too much fun spread out through this show.
The Catholic Archdiocese in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they put out a message basically saying, listen, we've heard that some of you are getting phone calls in the community, not our churches or whatever. Some of you in the community have been getting phone calls from the quote, St. Mary's Prayer Center Ministry, saying basically, give us money and we'll pray for you. It's a scam. Mm-hmm. I mean, and basically, I looked this up. This is not a new thing. This scam has been going on with that same fictional church's name for a long time.
Really?
And basically what they say is, you give us the seed money, like a televangelist, and we'll reward you. Tell us how much you want to give to us, and we'll make your dreams come true, whatever.
Are you going to make some sage point about how giving your money to scammers is approximately the same as giving your money to televangelists?
Thank you for beating me to that punch. Yeah, Here's what I don't understand. I really can't
let you have another one over on me.
They both take your money without actually answering your prayers. How is that any different? And I ask you.
But okay, wait. But sincerely, because we did this with the psychic thing too.
Uh-huh. What's the difference between a real psychic and a fake psychic who's scamming people?
Well, yeah, excuse me. And the crux of that was sort of this woman this psychic, quote unquote psychic, bilked a woman out of like $20,000 or whatever her savings account was. And Hammett was making the argument. I don't know if it was a good faith argument. I think he was fucking with me a little bit.
Probably.
But it's just, why is that any worse than somebody who goes to somebody month after month and gives them $100 a pop? Like, either way, you're getting nothing, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
This does feel different.
Go on. I tried wrapping my head around it because I'm having the same thoughts. Like, I know one is a scam and the other's a church. But if you're asking me to pinpoint why the scam is a scam, but the church is somehow legit, relatively speaking, like trying to pinpoint, like, because the church does it in good faith, even though it's the same results. It's the same, like... It's not like the church is saying this is for entertainment only.
Yeah, shit.
So I was trying to figure that out. Like, I'm not just trying to be a dick, even though I am being a dick.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out what's the difference. And also, if this prayer scam phone call thing says, give us a certain amount of money, what's the difference between a $10 seed payment and like a $100 seed payment? What's the difference in the prayers if you give more money?
The pastor can get a Lamborghini instead of a
Thank you.
instead of a Corolla.
I think the church is just mad they didn't think of it first.
I mean,
but I will tell you, the thing that made me laugh the most is when a local news outlet reported on the church saying, hey, we heard about this scam. Don't listen to them. They're scammers. Mm-hmm. The headline is, Grand Rapids Diocese warns of prayer for money scam. And I'm like, that's so self-incriminating, and they don't even...
They needed to revisit that
I think
draft.
a headline writer was just joking about the church, but like they worded it in a way, it's like tongue-in-cheek almost. I don't know.
Interesting.
That just made me laugh. What's up?
So there is a real cool, chill guy.
Go on.
His name is Bishop Donald Sanborn. And I want to thank Progressive Secular Humanist, which is Patheo's friend, and Michael Stone pulled some quotes because I just really didn't have it in me to go through this guy's garbage blog post. It was a criticism of the Me Too movement. And he was just like, yeah, men, you really need to watch what you're doing. And women, you're doing your best. We're thankful for you. You're really brave. So that's the end of that story. JK, he's the fucking worst. So, like, up top, it's true that the conduct of some men is deplorable in this regard, but it's also true that the conduct of some women is deplorable in this regard. The trend began over 100 years ago. Yes. Take this journey with me,
There was no assault or rape before 100 years ago.
Oh my God, thank you for noticing that.
You're welcome.
It gained momentum in World War I. Before the war, women covered their entire bodies with clothing. Like they should. Mm-hmm. After the war, the headlines came up and the necklines came down.
Those hussies showing their necks and ankles.
Like, you're right. They are hussies.
By the way, I need to point this out because I made the mistake of not like making a bigger deal of this when we wrote about it too, which is that his name is Bishop Donald Sanborn. He is not a member of Catholic Church leadership. He's part of some weird little sect that says we are totally what the Catholic Church is all about, but the official Catholic Church / the Vatican / all the people you think of with the Catholic Church say, this guy's not one of us. He's a crazy extremist on the fringe. And this guy's like, no. It's like something out of a Dan Brown novel. Like, no, I represent the true church. Jesus. But he's not. He's kind of like a fringy sort of dude. So Catholic Church has problems. This guy's message is a problem. Those are not one and the same in this case.
Up to about 1965, most women were married, not divorced, and had 5 or 6 children, at times more, and were devoted to their homes. With the appearance of the birth control pill in the 1960s, the role and attitude of women's would change radically, and with these changes, family life would suffer immeasurably. The effect of all this revolution in social mores, as well as the role of women, is that men and women have been thrown together in situations which are very dangerous. Women are daily interacting with men in the workplace.
How dare they?
In many cases, they're dressed in such a way as to be immodestly attractive to men. The inevitable result is that unless the men in the office are very vigilant about the virtue of chastity and fidelity to their wives, some very bad things take place.
Just to be clear, office flirtation does not cause rape. What women wear doesn't cause rape. Men and women working together, not rape. And having an affair at the workplace, which is what he was getting at, is also not rape.
Right.
Unethical, sure, but not rape.
Yeah.
Like, this guy has no... It's all black and white.
That's a really good
everything
way to put it.
is bad, and he's blaming the lady victims who are just clearly causing all of this.
It's so bad.
And by the way, he's basically reinstating kind of the Mike Pence rule / Billy Graham rule. Like, you're better off never being alone with a woman because you won't be tempted by her evilness.
Yeah.
Which is their way of saying, don't hire them. You don't have to work with them. You're better off just surrounding yourself with other men. Like, that's problematic in and of itself.
I had a really interesting week on Twitter of men like fucking coming after me for dumb shit. And my favorite one was about this dude was just like, answer me this. Why should men be in the same space as women? I was like, what? I don't know. Who are you? Anyway, he deleted everything. It was too bad.
See, I just block. I don't block. Then they know I block them. I just mute them, and then I don't think about these things.
No, I call in. I'll like tag a friend of mine, and just sort of some bored feminists will just swarm in and sort of take over that. It's pretty fun. I'd recommend it. It's a great hobby. What else you got, buddy?
Let's talk about. Okay, there was that Supreme Court case a year or two ago, Trinity Lutheran. Quick recap was some church, elementary school church in Missouri. They wanted access to a grant program in the state. State said, we have money if you want to renovate your playground. The church said, we want to renovate our playground. The state said, no, you're a church. We can't give you money because that would be violating the First Amendment. The church sued. The Supreme Court said, the church had a point. You're not giving them money to promote their religion. You're giving them money to renovate their playground. There's nothing violating the Establishment Clause about that.
Right.
So let them, a church, a religious group is eligible for taxpayer money as long as it's not promoting their religion directly. That was kind of what the Supreme Court decided. So the question that people have been asking since then is, how is the religious right, and everyone does this, but in this case, the religious right, how are they going to take this victory and use it to win other things? How are they going to take this and use it to further their own agenda? And now we're starting to see what that looks like. So there were actually two cases this week that stemmed from the Trinity Lutheran case. Here's one of them. Here's the good one. In Montana, the state Supreme Court, the state basically said, they passed a law that said, if you give kids a scholarship, if you donate to a school to let them give away scholarships to the kids, you're eligible for a $150 income tax credit. Okay, cool. So you give money to a school, you get a little bit of a tax break. That's how the state rewards you for doing something nice. The question is, what if you give money for a scholarship to a religious school? Should you also be eligible for the tax break? Because now you are furthering religion.
Right.
Should the taxpayers reward you for that? And the state basically said, this should not be allowed. Our Constitution says you can't give money to a private school and get rewarded for it by the state. The Montana Supreme Court actually said, yeah, you have a point. And they struck down the tax credit that helps religious schools. So that's a good thing. They voted 5-2 to strike down this law. They actually said that type of government subsidy in aid of sectarian schools is precisely what the constitutional delegates intended the Constitution to prohibit. Like, we don't want you giving money to private schools and getting rewarded for it.
Right.
Like, this is what we have the laws for. You can't do it. Americans United for Separation of Church and State, they said this is a double win. It protects church-state separation. It protects public school education. That's awesome. And they said the credit program, the tuition tax credit program, it was, quote, a transparent attempt to circumvent state constitutions prohibiting this sort of funding.
So they called them on it.
They were saying the law was wrong, and this is Americans United. The Montana Supreme Court correctly saw through this money laundering scheme. Other state courts should follow suit. So that's awesome. Good. That's what should have happened. Now, here's the flip side of it. And this happened, I believe, yesterday. The New Mexico Supreme Court had a different case. This one's more directly tied to Trinity Lutheran. Oh, by the way, I should say the Montana case, they said if you're allowing people to give money to schools for scholarships and then getting a tax break, that's not a tax break for something secular like a playground. You are giving money to the school.
Right.
So you can't say Trinity Lutheran protects us for giving this tax credit. No, they are supporting the school. They are furthering a religious cause. That's why that ruling doesn't apply. Okay, in New Mexico, they have a rule in the law that says they have public textbooks, and the state actually has a loan, like a textbook loan program. Like, you can't afford textbooks as the state. We have some for you to get. It takes money to administer this, to give away the books, to maintain all this, but public schools are eligible to take part in this textbook loan program. The question is, could religious schools take part in the textbook loan program? And in this case, the argument from the plaintiffs was, we're not asking for special benefits because we're religious. We just want to participate in the program you already have established. We just happen to be religious, but you're not furthering our religion. We just want access to the textbooks that everyone else has access to. That was kind of their argument for this. You feel like you want to say something, but you're not sure.
Yeah, I guess I don't have an encompassing understanding of like how funding for religious schools works.
Yeah.
So I
mean, they have to, in theory, they would have to take care of their own textbooks,
right.
And the families would have to pay for it themselves,
right,
and they don't get tax benefits for doing anything because they're not paying into the system.
Right. Right.
So that's why they would theoretically not have access to this program.
Okay.
Well, the Supreme Court in New Mexico said 3-2, you know what? There's nothing wrong with this. The schools, the religious schools, should totally be allowed into the textbook loan program.
I'm kind of surprised they share textbooks, if I'm being honest. Or like they have the same textbooks.
I guess if you're using like a math textbook, it's probably the same. So it's like, well, if a religious school wants access to it, you're not advancing their religion by letting them use it. So there's nothing wrong with that. Here's the surprising thing about this. It was a 3-2 vote in favor of the religious people. Mm-hmm. The two people who said, no, this is promoting religion or supporting religion were the only two Republicans on that court. And what they said is that excluding private schools, which is what the law says, excluding private schools from the state's textbook programs would not amount to religious discrimination because they said no to all private schools, not just religious ones.
Yeah.
They also said that there is a good reason to exclude private schools as a whole because there is a legitimate principle that doing so ensures that the public schools of our state are maximally financed. You are hurting public schools by letting private schools into this program, and you're not singling out religious schools as a problem.
Right.
They actually said there's a difference between discriminating, quote unquote, between public and private schools, which they said is fine, and that's exactly what's going on here, versus, religious schools and secular ones. Mm-hmm. And they said, you're treating this like it's a religious versus secular schools problem.
When it's not. It's public
not.
Versus private.
It's a public versus private. And they said this is the wrong move because the law was right to exclude all private schools. And you guys are making this change because you're saying it hurts religion and it's ostensibly a secular thing that they want. That's the wrong argument to make.
Right.
So this is a more troubling decision because here's what's going to happen. Now religious groups will be, the conservative ones, will be able to say, well, look, in New Mexico, they said we're eligible for all this stuff, even though we're a private school, even though we're a religious school. They said it was fine over here, so now we're going to ask for this. It's the whole if you give a mouse a cookie thing. You gave us a little bit, we're going to ask for more now somewhere else. But this is what happens. You're starting to see, at first it was about a playground, and now it's about, getting stuff from a system that they don't pay into at all.
Yeah.
Not just that they're eligible for it.
That's the problem, right? Is that they aren't paying taxes. Paying taxes, period. So they should not be getting.
They shouldn't be getting benefits that are supposed to benefit taxpayers.
Right.
And again, is it a huge deal on the surface? Specifically, am I bothered if they get a math textbook from the state? That's not the issue. It's about the principle of the thing, and that principle is going to be used to do worse things down the line. That's what bothers me about it. So that's happening. Here's another thing that, again, it gets good headlines, and I'm not sure it deserves it, so kind of like the John Gray thing from last week. The Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. So Southern Baptists, the biggest group of Protestants in the country. They are the biggest single denomination in the country, and this is their educational institution, Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. They commissioned a report saying, here's 6 faculty members at our institution. Yes, they belong to the same denomination, whatever. We're going to ask 6 historians to write a report about our denomination's involvement with racism and slavery. Tell us what tell us what we contributed or didn't to those issues throughout the past couple hundred years, warts and all. Yeah. And they even said, we'll give you the money to do the research and publish this report. We are not going to edit it. Do it. So that sounds commendable. That's a good thing for you to say, we want to know.
And what is their goal? Is it we want to start to make reparations, or we just need to be aware of our own history?
Aware of our own history. We need to acknowledge what our role was. And guess what the report said?
They were bad.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't hiding any of that. The report said very clearly, the founding fathers of our school, the Theological Seminary, were deeply involved in slavery, deeply complicit in the defense of slavery. They said their successors in the church, quote, advocated the inferiority of African Americans, openly embraced the ideology of the lost cause of Southern slavery.
Oof.
I mean, that's a big deal. They also pointed out the reason we have Southern Baptists is because they were pissed off that Northern Baptists weren't allowing slaveholders to be missionaries. That's why we have Southern Baptists. I mean, a lot of this, I should say, people knew about all of this, but Southern Baptists did not acknowledge all of this.
Okay.
So here's the step forward. They're kind of saying, we are now acknowledging this in our own history. So that's
a step in the right direction.
It is. It sounds like a step in the right direction, and that's kind of what the headline suggested, that the Southern Baptists are now acknowledging their role in the racist history of our nation. And that's fine. Here's the question that I'm trying to figure out, though.
Okay.
Even if you say they are not advocating racism now, their policies very well may, but in and of itself, they're not saying like racism is good. They're not saying black people are inferior. They're not doing that now. However, they still have really backwards views when it comes to women, when it comes to women in church leadership, when it comes to LGBTQ issues. They are just as bigoted about those groups of people as they used to be, explicitly toward black people. So, like, they're making the same mistakes now. They are using the same biblical verses to justify their bigotry today as they used to when they were supporting slavery.
Yeah, I guess, what is their plan then? Like, if they're trying to be introspective and retrospective, I guess, and look back at how did we get to where we are today, and what do we have to account for the sins of our father, all that stuff. Cool, great. Right?
Like, wouldn't it help to say, we made these mistakes in the past. We are determined never to make those mistakes in the future. But you are.
Yeah.
That's why
at present.
At present, you are making the same sorts of mistakes now. And there's literally nothing they said they are doing wrong about LGBTQ issues. They haven't even mentioned, we've discussed Paige Patterson, that former Southern Baptist leader who made jokes about like 14-year-old girls and how hot they were. And he made, women at the seminary came up to him and said, I've been assaulted, basically. And he did nothing about it.
Right.
And he was basically kicked out of their leadership, or even the saying, like, oh, this guy's a big guy in our movement. They basically pushed him out of there. So good, but they didn't even mention him. It's like, you guys have a lot of problems now. If you haven't figured that out, that there's a connection between your support of slavery and racism and the same sort of bigotry you're espousing today in other areas, what good is your report doing?
Yeah,
and if you can't acknowledge that we use the Bible to support these positions, we now acknowledge we're totally wrong.
It's the same fucking Bible.
Yeah, what does that tell you about your Bible and the way you're interpreting it? Isn't there a mistake there that you ought to point out? Because it sounds like they're just saying, well, now that we've acknowledged racism, we're the best.
It's almost impressively obtuse to, like, not get it so hard. Wow.
Seriously.
That's really interesting.
So, again, they got a lot of good press for commissioning the report, saying, yep, we acknowledge we played a role in this horrible part of our history.
Right.
And then... So here's what I'm getting. 50 years from now, maybe 100, they're going to issue the same report about gay people.
Yeah, if they still exist. Not gay people.
Not gay people.
If Southern Baptists still exist.
Yeah, they're going to issue the same report saying, we were totally wrong about how we, denounced same-sex marriage and LGBTQ rights and the existence of trans people. We were totally wrong in denouncing all of that. But for some reason, they failed to see that that's exactly what you're doing now. All right.
So in both parties are the same news, LOL.
Yes.
just every time I read an article like this, I always think about how people are like, well, Trump and Hillary were basically the same. Like, yeah, I'm still mad about it because this is what's happening.
Yes.
So the Trump administration just shut down a study that was hoping to find a cure for HIV. They just 86 to that. So a senior at the National Institutes of Health Laboratory, senior scientists said that the Health and Human Services Department has told them to discontinue procuring fetal tissue. So fetal tissue is used in a lot of scientific testing, and in this specific instance, the researcher said, quote, "This effectively stops our research to discover a cure for HIV."
So their anti-abortion views are somehow also like hurting LGBTQ people who are disproportionately affected by this kind of research. So to them, this is like a win-win.
Yeah. So fetal tissue does come from elective abortions, which at least they're not. It's not one of those things that like people are like, oh, stem cell research murders babies. Well, that's not really how that works.
Yeah.
They're right. It comes from abortions. So the scientists are furious. Warner Green, who's the director of Gladstone Institute of Virology and Immunology, for 25 years, since 1991, he runs its HIV lab. He said this is scientific censorship of the worst kind. He was poised to collaborate with a researcher in Montana on a new experiment that they were hopeful about. He said, quote, "You spend your life trying to do good with experiments and organize your science carefully. And suddenly, at the whim of some politicians in Washington, D.C., they remove a critical piece of your scientific armamentarium." So anyway...
Anti-science, anti-abortion, anti-HIV, anti-research.
Yeah, it's all... Research. I think it's really a good example of why why elections are important and why politics are important, not just because of economics or whatever, but literally people's lives hang in the balance because we could be curing HIV right now, or we could be working toward it. We could be working toward these cures, and instead they want to fucking grandstand because abortions make them feel icky.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Thanks, people who didn't vote.
Yeah, I swear to fucking God.
Or voted for a third party. Again, all of this...
third-party voters.
While maybe we didn't point out specifics, like this is exactly what's going to happen, you knew this was going to happen. This is what I don't really get about the third-party arguments or whatever. It's that we know what's going to happen. If it's not hyperbolizing here. We know what happens when conservatives are in power.
Yes.
It hurts people.
Yes. And I think that's... I've seen a lot of people sort of like try to make fun of or disassociate themselves with Democrats because they're like, oh, they were so upset when Trump won and they were crying. I'm like, yeah, I cried the next day a whole fucking lot because I knew this shit was going to happen. Aside from the fact that Trump is a fucking raging misogynist and a like comic book villain at this point, these repercussions are far-reaching, and this is going to even if we get back into power in 2020 or whatever, these repercussions are going to be far-reaching, and we've lost these years. We'll always have lost these years, and however many lives that costs.
Good times had by all. All right, I'm moving from politics to this other story out of Canada. The headlines that I read is like Christmas came early for these atheist parents because they won $12,000. They were awarded it from the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal because apparently their daughter was kicked out of her Montessori school. The parents said they're discriminating against her because we're atheists and we're raising her without religion. And the tribunal said, you are correct. Here's $12,000 that this school owes you. Wait, she got kicked out of
Montessori school?
Yep.
Is Montessori religious?
No, just a private type of school, but it's a philosophy thing. It's not a religious school.
Yeah.
But they said they basically treated her poorly, kicked her out because this family was atheist. And the tribunal actually called it discrimination and said the school, quote, treated them differently from every other parent at the school and sought to suppress their expression of concerns about the nature of the curriculum that were grounded in the family's race, ancestry, and religious beliefs, which is to say they're atheists. Sounds like, oh man, what the hell did this school do to this poor girl?
What did they do?
And then you start reading the actual decision from the tribunal, because whenever they have these decisions, they go into the history of the case, right? And then it's like, oh shit, I don't like this atheist family. And here's kind of I was reading through this, I'm like starting to summarize what's going on. Then I realized, oh man, this thing goes on for dozens and dozens of pages, and I'm not going to document all of this. But here's the long and short of it. In 2014, the parents, Gary Mangle Mai Yasue, they enrolled their daughter in this school, and the dad, Gary, got a position on the board of directors for this Montessori school.
Okay.
It was an at-large position. Whatever, he's a new parent, and they like getting the parents involved. That's normal.
Sure.
And they were having a discussion that November about what are we going to do for the holidays, to celebrate it with the kids. What do we want to do? Someone said maybe we should get some clay elf ornaments to celebrate Christmas, whatever. This guy chimes in. He's like, no. Here's his argument. Maybe legit. He's like, well, you're promoting a Christian holiday. Not all families celebrate Christmas. So then someone says, well, how about we add in, there's a dog making noise. What if we add in, a Hanukkah activity to the mix? And he's like, no. Because not everyone only celebrates Christmas and Hanukkah. And here's the email that he sent back to them, and I'm going to read this because holy shit, this gets insane.
Okay. Ignore the squeaking in the background.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Daddy's just beating up a chipmunk.
Yeah, as one does. I don't think it's appropriate to celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, or any other religious political event at preschool, including Remembrance Day, which is like veterans stuff.
Okay.
My child is 3 years old and cannot consent to being involved in decorating military wreaths or Christmas trees or lighting Hanukkah candles. Having the kids do these things seems inappropriate given their absolute inability to understand the religious and political symbolism associated with those acts. As Richard Dawkins has written, there is no such thing as a Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, etc. baby, toddler, child. They are simply too young to be making these sorts of decisions. As a side note, this is where it gets good. I certainly hope that there will be no discussion of Santa Claus at this school.
Oh, no.
I am absolutely against anyone blatantly lying to my daughter. Just some thoughts from an atheist family. Please accept my apologies if this offends. So basically, if it has to do with the holidays, if it has to do anything with the holidays, not even religious, but cultural, nope, don't mention it, don't do it, nothing. Because apparently it's wrong to even teach kids about all these different types of things.
Yeah, that's not great, huh?
So all the other board members are like, we're not trying to indoctrinate them into Christianity. We have some idea. We just want to it's a Montessori school. We want to give them a global perspective on everything.
Yeah, and isn't, that's your responsibility, dude. That's if your kid comes home and says, I heard about Santa Claus, you say, well, I don't think Santa Claus is real, and other kids do, and that's what it means to
my kid's
be a human in the fucking world.
My kid is 3. She's at daycare. They're doing all sorts of random holiday things. It's like, it's nice. You learned about all of this stuff. Cool. Interesting. Fine. So then they're like, well, let us try to reach out to this atheist father, the rest of the board. They're like, do you want us to include whatever it is your family does? And he suggested the inclusion of, quote, atheist Christmas ornaments. I know, sounds weird, but here's what he suggested. We'll give them an ornament that says skeptic, another one that says atheist. And actually, it defined atheist on the ornament or something as someone who believes in one fewer God than you do.
Oh, no.
Wait. The third one?
Dude.
It showed a picture of a plane flying into the World Trade Center with the caption, atheists don't fly airplanes into buildings, as you give to a 3-year-old. These are amusing or not memes on Reddit or something. But it's that's not a celebration of atheism that you do on the holidays. I've laughed at all of those things at one point or another, but I know the context of them, and this
also,
is not
you're
the
not
context.
putting in a fucking preschool. Jesus.
I know. Yeah. So basically, all these parents are like, dude, what the fuck? And by the way, one person said that atheists don't fly airplanes into building thing was thinly veiled Islamophobia, which, again, I would debate in another situation. In this particular case, I kind of know what they're getting at.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So here's where the thing. I start summarizing all the stuff, then I realize this goes on for dozens more pages. And those dozens more pages are just this guy being a dick to everyone on the board trying to appease him, trying to then work around him, saying like, they made one mistake in that they were going to read a explicitly Christian book to the kids about Jesus and the manger. And the dad pointed out, you can't do that. And they agreed, you know what, we'll get rid of that. But everything else was pretty much like, yeah, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you want to celebrate. Like, they want to introduce the kids to everything. It seems reasonable. And this guy was just like, not saying include some mention that not everyone does it. It's that he didn't want any of it in there. It's like a reality TV show at some point. You got the board not CCing the dad on certain threads. They're sniping at each other in private messages.
Jesus.
At one point, like, they tried to speak to him privately. Maybe if we get off email, we'll fix this situation. And that didn't work either. At some point, he's joking about how he'll sue them too, referring to the school. And I'm quoting here from the court records. And then he began doing the Nazi salute and marching around while he sung a different version of O Canada in which he substituted his own lyrics. Another board member felt uncomfortable and left soon after.
This guy is the fucking
This guy said he was
worst.
joking and trying to make a point. But again, if your symbolic point involves a Nazi salute, you're not going to win this argument. By the way, he also said he doesn't want to do Valentine's Day or Easter. Nothing. We can't mention those.
Valentine's Day.
Saint Valentine. Get it? Religious holiday. Yeah. And he was pissed off. So ultimately, here's where this boils down to. At the end of all of this, with this impossible father, the school says, you know what? For you guys, we are asking you to sign for the next year. Here's a new contract, basically saying this school embraces this multicultural approach. And it actually said in there, multiculturalism, including the observation of a wide variety of celebrations, is important to us. These parents did not want to sign that piece of paper, which only they had to sign, more or less. They didn't sign it.
At least be subtle about it, guys.
They didn't sign it. The school responded by saying, fine, your daughter can't come back here. And
And the poor girl.
And that is what the judge said is this discriminatory. This Human Rights Council tribunal basically said, you asked only this family to sign off on this. You singled them out.
Yeah.
You basically retaliated by punishing their daughter. The school is the one that crossed from
yes.
dealing with the insufferable dude to doing something they shouldn't have done. And the school's the one paying for it. And again, going back to that headline, atheist family celebrates Christmas early because they get $12,000 for this discrimination. It's like, no, I get it. They won, and maybe they should have won, legally speaking. But this guy, the whole family just seems like these parents are dicks to these people.
Yeah. You know how I always say you're why people hate atheists?
Yes, to me all the time.
I think this guy is why.
Yeah. So,
you're a dick, but this is next level garbage.
Yeah. So again, it's just like you have one guy who's just ruining things for everybody and no one knows how to deal with it. And then they made the wrong move.
Yeah. I mean, that, obviously the school misstepped. I mean, from what it sounds like, $12,000 feels like an appropriate amount to pay to never talk to this dude again.
Right.
I would pay $12,000 to never have to interact with this man.
Yeah. So here's a totally separate story. This involves a writer named Kelsey Burke. She wrote a book a couple years ago called Christians Under Covers, talking about Christians and sex, and interesting topic. And she wrote an article this week for Huffington Post saying, basically, she was looking through a bunch of message boards. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means like Reddit threads or whatever, but message boards where conservative Christians, the kind that preach abstinence before marriage and all that stuff, where they talk about sex advice and they talk about sex. And she was saying, what is it that they talk about on their sex ed? Well, what questions do they ask?
I'm dying.
And what advice do they get in return? Because you imagine it's not like a Dan Savage column or something. Right. So what are these people asking? And to put it bluntly, she said, quote, evangelicals love pegging. Do you want to explain it for those who are wondering what we are talking about?
Okay, I want to say there's nothing inherently funny about pegging, but it's just the last thing I expected you to say.
That's why I wrote it down for this week.
Pegging is when a woman puts on a strap-on and has anal sex with her husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I deserve a drink for getting you to say that on the show. I don't know.
It's 2 p.m. Why did you bring this to me on a non-drinking day?
I know. So, for example, she said one of the comments she saw on a message board.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just thought about it again.
She goes on. This is from the message board. My dear husband is 100% man throughout, but he loves when I peg him. Another person wrote, I was talking to God about it again, and I really felt the Lord say to me, I love what you and your wife have together. Referencing pegging. So just to be clear, a guy sticking something up his butt, totally fine. A guy sticking another man's penis up his butt, no, eternity in hell. A guy sticking something resembling a penis up his butt, this is what they were asking about.
Okay.
And they were like, theological debate. We don't know if this is okay.
Sure.
Because you're not actually
Did they not mention pegging in the Bible? I can't remember.
Some of them said
Testament?
they do the pegging, but it doesn't look like a dildo. It's.
What are you talking about, Hammond?
I don't know. I don't want to know. By the way, I had to look this up. There is a Bible verse that arguably condemns pegging. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 17, you also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of my gold and silver, and you made for yourselves male idols and engaged in prostitution with them.
Okay, we say sex work now.
Put that one on your email footnote signature line. Ezekiel 16, 17.
It sounds more like they were like fucking a lady with the gold. I don't know. I think it's a stretch, no pun intended, to...
It's 2:00. What are you doing?
Oh my God!
Just to be...
What is this stupid show?
To her credit, this is what Burke said at the end of all this. Perhaps one day they'll agree that everyone deserves consensual sexual pleasure and expression, even and especially the people who taught them about pegging in the first place.
I mean, okay, it's really important for me to be clear that, like, if pegging is what you're into, like, by all means, go nuts, use lube, go slow. Like, you don't want to fuck around with that shit. But just, this feels so far beyond what you would think of as, like, good, pure Christian sex.
Well, again, all of the pegging, I assume,
Do they think you
is
get
done
from pegging.
I didn't see that. I do think that when they're talking about it, they are always talking about it within the confines of a straight marriage.
Sure.
You know, within marriage, pegging is cool, but like, don't do it before then. That would be sinning. What are you doing? Yeah. So
that is
a thing that
genuinely
exists.
the funniest thing I've heard all day. Holy Christ.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Okay, I got one last one for you.
Okay.
Then I'm done with my stuff. This one does not involve pegging. Sorry. There was a poll that was commissioned by the American Humanist Association and the Center for Free Thought Equality. Paid for. Sorry, this is going to happen all the rest of the show. Basically, there was a poll commissioned by atheist groups, but here's what they want, but conducted by a legit polling organization. Mm-hmm. They wanted to know, is being an atheist a political liability?
Okay.
Because we've all seen the Gallup polls that say, would you vote for someone in your party, like your policies and everything, if that person were a blank? And like whenever they do those polls now, if you're above 90%, if you're black, like, yeah, even doesn't matter what party. Most people have no problem if you're black.
Right.
Same with Catholic, Jewish, Hispanic, woman. If you agree with their policies, that stuff isn't a deal breaker.
Right.
So fine, good. Those should all be up there. The question is, what about if they're an atheist? And for years now, it's always been atheists are at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. It's under 50%. In 2012, there was a little celebration among our people because atheists crossed 50%. It's like, hey, more than 50% would say it's all right. And in 2015, when they were in the running for the 2016 elections, there was a new low end of the totem pole. Like, atheists were not at the bottom of the list anymore. We were at 58%, but guess what was even lower?
Murderers.
47% of people said they would only 47% said they would vote for a person in their party if that person were a socialist.
Oh.
Yeah, so thanks, Bernie. So socialist was the deal breaker at that time. And that's still a dirty word they use against like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whatever. Okay, but the question is it still a liability today? And what the poll found, here's kind of the big takeaway. If you are in, it doesn't matter what district you're in, but if your base is pro-choice, pro-marriage equality Democrats, so we're talking you're going after that base, those people don't care if you're an atheist.
Right.
Which is kind of intuitive, but also kind of saying, look, if you're in a super red district where you are never going to win over conservatives because you're pro-choice and pro-LGBTQ rights, you should go ahead and say you're an atheist because it will not hurt you. You're hurt enough by that other stuff. Being an atheist won't also hurt you.
Yeah.
So that's important to know. And if you're in a blue district where you're going to get voters who support your policies and you're up against someone who opposes them, you also have very little to lose. They're not going to really use that against you. It's not going to hurt you, especially if the other side's like, but look, he's an atheist or she's an atheist. It's like, yeah, it's really not going to make a big deal. Case in point, they pointed to Gail Jordan, a woman, I don't know if we covered her on the podcast. I covered her on the website. She ran for the Tennessee State Senate in 2016. She's like a perfect test case for this.
Okay.
She ran for the state Senate in 2016. She lost. Surprise, surprise. She's a Democrat in a super red district. Of course she was going to lose. But she never brought up her atheism. She didn't talk about it. She got 26% of the vote. Not a great outcome.
No.
But that's without her mentioning religion at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so it turned out.
Do you know if that would be on par for like past polling for?
You know what? I don't know
Democrats?
what happened before that, but here's the takeaway. She got 26% then. That seat opened up for a bunch of reasons. Again, this past year, like the person who had that seat got promoted somewhere else, maybe a Donald Trump pick for something, but all of a sudden they had a special election for her district again, so she ran again and she won the primary again, so she's on the ballot again. This time. Not only did she talk about her atheism more, as if it's not something to be ashamed of, the other side used it against her to attack her with ads. Like, it was horrible the way they treated her with the advertising, but you also kind of expect it.
Right.
She still lost.
Okay.
But this time she got 28% of the votes. So, like, the fact that this became a target for her because of her atheism, it didn't hurt her at all. In fact, you could say more Democrats were on her side this time around. But their whole point of the polling is that this is not a liability among people, among the base that would already support you.
Right.
And that's important to know. Now, if you're in a swing state, if you're in a tight race where you need to win over moderates and you're trying to win over maybe some conservatives who don't like the Republican option, don't talk about your atheism. That seems sensible.
Yeah.
But if you're in a really blue area, it's probably not going to hurt you. And if you're in a really red area where you're already going to lose because everyone knows your policy issues, you might as well say it. And I hope people listen to that moving forward in competitive races. Because, again, we talk about the need when it comes to the social acceptance of atheism or whatever label you want to use. This is one of the things that really makes a difference, seeing like, oh, wow, this person's running for office and they're not religious. And they're just saying like, no, I'm not religious, but I do support church-state separation. I'm here to defend the rights of the people who are religious, no matter what religion or non-religion you are.
Right.
You could totally say that and not lose people because the same people who'd be like, well, that person's not religious, they're hellbound, blah, blah, blah. They weren't going to vote for you anyway.
Right.
So
Interesting.
come out. That's important. They actually said 74% of those pro-choice, pro-LGBTQ Democrats, 74% said if they knew a candidate was non-religious, it wouldn't affect their vote whatsoever. Another 14% said I would be more likely to vote for them. And slightly less than that said it would hurt them, like your chances.
Yeah.
But on the net, like the net positive here,
That's cool.
That's the cool thing about this.
That's
so
good to
keep that
know.
in mind.
I've got one more like tiny thing we don't need to
Please.
dig in too much on, but it's just petty enough for me to care about. So there is a Christian author. His name is Larry Alex Taunton.
Yes.
He wrote a book after the death of Christopher Hitchens. He wrote a book called The Faith of Christopher Hitchens, the restless soul of the world's most notorious atheist.
He basically suggested Hitchens had doubts about his atheism, and people were pissed off, including Hitchens' family, because they're like, no, he was an atheist till like the second he died. He did not change. You didn't know him well.
This guy would know.
Yeah, this guy took a couple of road trips and debated him in a couple of venues. You were not close to him.
Yeah, and we hear
I
about
remember
those
that book.
deathbed conversions
Yeah.
all the time. And
Yeah. So what did Taunton do now?
well, in addition to his shitty opinions about Christopher Hitchens, he also really likes to harp on things about like how morality and religion are linked. So in other words, so he wrote, quote, atheism unquestionably exacerbates.
Yes.
Did I get it?
You got it.
Was it one of those?
Go on.
The evil in our nature. And if Christianity doesn't make you good, strictly speaking, from a theological perspective, none of us are. Cool. It makes you better than you otherwise might be. So in other words, if you're an atheist, like you're grading on a curve, right? Like if you're a Christian, you're definitely going to be like doing a little bit better than necessary. Essentially saying
I have a wonder about how people can still claim that Christianity and morality are linked when you see what happens today in this administration that is propped up by white evangelicals. How can you possibly say it's moral when we see evidence daily of how they are immoral?
No, because they're watching a different movie than we are. They're experiencing a different thing. Like we're seeing children in essential prison camps on the border, and they're seeing brown people who are scary. You know that. And be quote unquote illegals who deserve whatever gets to them. Yeah. They're seeing the same thing we are, but like in a different language almost.
The cover of the new
what they
issue,
think morals are is fucking on a different planet from what we think they are.
The cover of the new Newsweek this week is all about how younger evangelicals are like fed up with the olds.
Yeah.
And what the argument was is that, look, Republicans have relied on white evangelicals in politics for decades now. You'll probably still see that in 2020. But by 2024, the demographics look like they are about to shift so that Republicans will no longer be able to count on white evangelicals as their greatest base of support because the newer evangelicals, the younger ones, don't want any association with those people.
Yeah.
And they actually said younger evangelicals, even if they believe, they are more geared towards social justice. They care about immigrants. They care about income inequality and a lot of the things pretty much associated with Democrats right now. So though you see the rise of the religious left, right, and that will counterbalance the religious right very soon.
And in politics, whatever always progresses, right? Like it's very it's not likely that we are going to regress as a culture that in 50 years or in 100 years we're going to say, oh no, we were right in the first place. Gays are icky or whatever. So no matter what, like looking back on 2016, 2018, like the GOP, the Southern Baptists, whomever is supporting this Trump garbage, they're going to be the villains. They're going to be the villains in our history. That's a Hamilton quote.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like any way you slice it, history is going to look back very, very unkindly on what we're doing right now. And I think young people have enough of a sense of scope to see that.
Yeah,
and
even young evangelicals are like, I don't like my label. I might still be a Jesus follower or a Christian or whatever, but like I'm not one of them. Don't lump me in them.
Right.
So
okay, that's all I have. We have announcements. You have thank yous to make.
I have thank yous to make. I do. I wanted to thank a few of the people who have supported us on Patreon, specifically Mike A, Laura O, and wait for it, Oscar Dog. That's what it said on the thing.
Okay.
So thank you, Oscar the dog.
Who knows?
Didn't say a middle name, but there you go. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. And if you want to be on this list and join Oscar/the dog, patreon.com/friendlyatheist.
And there's a level at which I'll send you a custom cross stitch. What's that? $25
$20
$20 a month. I'll send you a custom cross stitch just for you. And hey, if I owe somebody a cross stitch, friendlyatheistpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sorry. I also have a small announcement. I've been saying for the last few weeks I'll be in California, in LA at the beginning of 2019, and now I have some firm facts because I bought my plane tickets.
Look at you.
Thanks, Southwest. So I'm going to be there the week of January 7th, so that's starting on Monday. So if you are in that area and want to come meet up, a friend of mine and I are meeting up for a drink, and I'm inviting all Friendly Atheist listeners if you're in the area, or if not in the area, who knows? LA's probably fun to road trip to. It's notoriously easy and small and accessible. There is a bar called ETA in Highland Park. I'm going to be there on January 8th, which is a Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m. So ETA in Highland Park in the Los Angeles area, January 8th, 6:30. Tweet at me, BLUEBURIE on Twitter if you are planning on coming or if you want details. I just gave you all the details I have. I let my friend pick the bar. So, yeah, anything good happening to you this weekend?
Grandfather's very sick. It's not a good thing, but yeah, he's not feeling well, so we're all going to go visit him.
Is this your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandfather. He's like 97, 98.
My grandmother's 98.
Yeah, so...
Ugh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
That's
so
rough.
we'll take the kids. We'll go see him. Hopefully not for the last time, but I think we're all kind of going in acknowledging that's probably the last time we see him. So that's a weird, sad, like you know it's coming, but still.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's my
weekend
weekend for you.
Well, it feels really stupid to say that I'm going to do an escape room tomorrow. So fucking thanks for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me go first.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the city, spending the night in the city tomorrow night. My brother's birthday is coming up, so we're doing an escape room, and then my husband's holiday party. So
look at you.
Yeah, we're staying in a hotel.
Look at you making friends.
I know. My friends are staying here to watch the dog.
Nice.
It's going to be really nice. So I'm looking forward to that. And
we'll
I'm
see
sorry
you all
about
next.
Twitter.
You didn't see it coming. I'm on Twitter. Find me. I don't know. You know where to go.
Email us if you... Oh, wait, really quick. Sorry, before we go. No listener mail, but Allison Cleveland, she's looking for a secular group of people. So if you are in Cleveland and secular and want to be friends with Allison, let me know. Thanks, Kristen. Hey, Sierra, sorry that I talked about Nadia Bowles-Weber. Apparently she's a garbage person. Sorry for talking about her positively.
I saw that email. I don't know that she's a garbage person, but she has blind spots like a lot of us. And she participated. She was the one who wanted to turn purity rings into a giant vagina.
Yeah.
Funny, cool, go you. She also participated in a conference that kind of included men who probably shouldn't have been at any public event. And that's, I think, what the criticism was about.
Okay.
So it's nuanced. She's not perfect. We also weren't trying to suggest she was, but that particular event was kind of a thing I liked. I'm sorry, the purity ring thing, the burning of it, that I liked. You don't have to like everything.
Yeah. And Elaine wrote us about a story of her kind of fighting the good fight in her kids' school when they did some questionable religious garbage. So she
just don't be like the
all
Canadian parents.
Yeah, Elaine, use it as a template of what not to do, please. Please, Elaine, you're a listener. We love you. I don't want to read about you on the show and make fun of you. You don't deserve that. Okay.
Thanks.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.